Welcome to Deep Dive Reddit Stories. This is where we cut through all the noise, the endless scrolling, and get right to the core insights. Because honestly, who has the time for information overload? Not me. Today, we're diving deep into something that, well, I think a lot of us have wondered about. It's that question about the line. When does someone go from being the cool party bro drinker guy to, well, an alcoholic? And for this deep dive, our sources are straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We pulled from a Reddit thread, just filled with people sharing super raw, unfiltered opinions and experiences. It's like a whole mosaic of perspectives. So our goal today is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights from these personal stories to help understand those shifts people talk about. The subtle ones and the maybe not so subtle ones. Okay, let's get into it. And hey, while you're here settling in, maybe hit that subscribe button and definitely drop us a comment later. Let us know what you think. Cool. All right, kicking us off, there was this top voted comment on the thread from Banana Wamajama that just kind of nailed it. When the party don't stop becomes the party can't stop. Simple, right? But wow, it says so much.
It absolutely does. That small shift in wording points to a really fundamental psychological change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the difference between choosing to do something for enjoyment and feeling compelled to do it like it's a necessity.
Okay.
Think about it. A party implies choice.
Yeah.
You start it, you end it. But when that activity, that drinking, goes from being, an occasional fun thing to something you have to do every day, even if you still call it fun, well, that's a huge red flag.
Right. The underlying reason has totally changed.
Exactly. Like User Ain't No Preacher put it pretty bluntly, it's not a party if it happens every night. And then you had others like Arthur Rimbaud 24 and Pix 88 talking about that grim moment of realization, like this place is a prison and these people aren't your friends. That's when the whole illusion just shatters.
Oh, man, that's heavy. Realizing the party isn't fun anymore, it's just something you can't escape. And here's where it gets really interesting, maybe even darker. That idea of the party often stops being social at all. It becomes like super isolating. User Evil Twin 154 shared this story from rehab that just hit hard.
Okay.
They mentioned their drug of choice was whiskey and cocaine, and someone called them a party boy. The response was just devastatingly honest. Was not much of a party when I was doing it by myself in my apartment every night.
Wow. Yeah.
They described this cycle just drinking until they were too wasted to even play video games, just staring at the TV until they passed out. Then wake up, repeat. It's not a party of one. It's like solitary confinement with a bottle.
That shift from social drinking to solitary coping is so critical.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The setting, the context, it completely changes why the substance is being used. It stops being about, connecting with people or celebrating and becomes this internal tool. Often, a desperate one to manage feelings or just to kind of exist.
Just get through the day.
Precisely. Now, it's worth noting, like user 3 Blind Mice 1 pointed out, some famous people, Stephen King, Robin Williams, even Freud apparently used substances like cocaine alone, supposedly for work.
Right, the whole creative fuel idea.
Yeah, and our recipe mentioned a beer for word system in college, so solo use isn't automatically a sign of severe alcoholism, not always, but it is a very slippery slope.
Okay.
Because when the main reason becomes numbing emotions,
Yeah.
like Adventurous Noise 82 said, or just sheer boredom, like Fivabi mentioned, or like Knickknacks put it, using it to survive, the relationship with alcohol has fundamentally changed. The party's definitely over, even if the drinking hasn't stopped.
So that solitary use, it's a big flashing warning light then.
It is, definitely. Because it shows the substance isn't about enhancing social life anymore. It's become a personal crutch.
Yeah.
But what can make things even more dangerous, even faster, is when people start combining substances.
Oh, yeah, that came up too. User Dual Option shared this incredibly detailed, almost scary story about mixing cocaine and alcohol.
Cocathylene?
Exactly. They explain how that combination creates cocathylene, which is apparently like 3 to 5 times stronger than coke on its own and lasts way longer.
Which sounds appealing to some initially, but...
Right, but it led to just completely losing control. Blackouts lasting like 48 hours or more. They described buying an 8-ball that's 3.5 grams of coke, for anyone unfamiliar, thinking it'll be a fun night, only to wake up days later, money gone, car parked across town, no memory, and definitely no cocaine left, just gone.
It's a terrifying illustration of losing control, isn't it? And pharmacologically, it's incredibly dangerous. That increased potency and duration from cocathylene turns what might start as a shareable party drug into something that can cause devastating consequences really, really quickly.
Yeah.
The user's story, waking up days later, the 8-ball just vanished. It's stark. And for them, the real turning point, the wake-up call, was when their friend got seriously hurt trying to steal from a dealer just to get more. It just shows how fast things can spiral. When substances are used to just keep the party going indefinitely, it goes from fun to frantic to actually dangerous, almost in the blink of an eye.
Man, that's intense. So, moving from those extreme situations, let's talk about something that seems simpler, but maybe isn't. This saying kept popping up in the thread from Queef Nuggets. Party animals know when the liquor store closes. Alcoholics know when the liquor store opens.
Ah, yes, that one. It's catchy.
Totally. It feels kind of true, right?
It feels intuitive, yeah, and that's why it sticks. But it's also potentially quite misleading. It really oversimplifies things.
How so?
Well, it boils a complex issue down to just looking at the clock. We saw a comment from Never Name, who used to work at a beer store.
Hmm.
They talked about the Breakfast Club, this mix of people, homeless folks, people on welfare, but also, functional alcoholics heading to work, who all showed up right at opening.
Okay, so that part fits the saying.
It does. But they also mentioned other early customers, like shift workers buying a beer after finishing their overnight shift. For them, it was the end of their day.
Ah, right. Context matters.
Hugely. And user Cakeover mentioned getting judgmental looks or comments like, "Isn't it too early to be drinking?" when they were just grabbing a post-night shift beer. It shows how society kind of judges without understanding the why.
Yeah, good point.
So the timing itself isn't the whole story. As one big cat pointed out, relying on that saying can give false reassurance. They said, you can be an alcoholic way before ever veering into morning drinking.
Okay, so the clock watching thing is maybe not the best measure. That leads us nicely into this whole idea of the functional alcoholic, right? Where maybe the classic signs aren't there. Life doesn't seem to be falling apart immediately.
Exactly. That same user, one big cat, mentioned that many people end up with severe liver failure having never had the shakes or been morning drinkers. It flies under the radar.
So how do we define functional then?
Well, user B-Triple put it pretty clearly. It's continued use despite negative consequences. The key is that those consequences might not be the dramatic, visible ones we often associate with alcoholism, like losing a job or homelessness. Not right away, anyway.
They're more subtle.
Often, yes.
Hmm.
MedChemist 464 shared their story, appearing okay, holding down a job. But meanwhile, their liver enzymes were climbing, and internally, their life was starting to unravel.
Mm.
Or Euphomaniac, realizing they weren't truly 100% present for their family, even though they weren't blacking out or missing work. It's about that diminished quality of life, that lack of presence.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Needlestack described how alcohol became a barrier, stopping them from actually dealing with life's stresses, even without hangovers. It was a coping mechanism that prevented growth.
So connecting it all, addiction can be this slow burn, subtly eroding health, relationships, and well-being long before a major crisis hits.
That makes sense. It's not always a sudden crash. And another thing that seemed like a big red flag, even in these functional scenarios, was hiding the drinking. Oh, absolutely. Universally recognized.
Like user No Panic Tesla said, pretty straightforwardly, dude, I think you might have a problem if you are starting to hide your alcohol. Seems obvious, but people convince themselves they're being slick.
They do. But yeah, hiding bottles, sneaking drinks.
Mm.
It's a classic sign that the person knows on some level that their drinking is problematic or would be judged by others.
Right. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of different experiences. What does this all boil down to? Where's that line, really? From all these Reddit comments, it seems less about the amount and more about losing control and the negative impacts, yeah.
That's the core theme that emerged, definitely. Synthesizing all those definitions people shared, a few key indicators really stand out. First, the inability to stop. Like Sweet Kiss Angel said, when just one more always turns into more, despite your intentions. Or as Element Inspector put it, when the room spins but you keep going.
The loss of the off switch.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Second, when it becomes a primary coping mechanism, shifting from social fun to needing it to numb emotions like Adventurous Noise 82 shared, or handle boredom like Fee Bibby, or just to survive the day, as Knick-Knack said, its function changes.
Okay.
And third, interference with life. When it starts negatively affecting your job, your money, your relationships, your health. User CRISPRfest, who worked in addiction treatment, gave that clinical definition. Continued use despite negative consequences. And Visual Celery summed it up so well. A party animal likes to drink, an alcoholic needs to drink.
Want versus need, that really cuts to it.
It does, and that distinction really highlights the element of choice or the loss of it. Oak Athlete 1092 told this great story about their friend Martin, a total party guy.
Uh-huh.
But when faced with losing his career and a relationship over drinking, Martin made the decision to stop. And he actually did it. He could choose. That ability to choose and follow through contrasts sharply with what many alcoholics experience, making the decision to stop over and over, but being unable to actually make the change stick.
That's a powerful distinction, the ability to actually make the change happen.
Exactly. It speaks volumes about where someone is on that spectrum.
And, while we've focused a lot on the person drinking, the thread also had these incredibly difficult stories from people affected by someone else's drinking, that ripple effect.
Yes, that's such an important dimension. It's crucial to remember the profound, often devastating impact addiction has beyond the individual. It affects entire families, friendships, communities.
Hmm.
We saw stories like Pancarucha's about their friend, who seemed like a functional drinker for years, but after some tragedies, just drank himself to death. Found with over 80 empty bottles. Just heartbreaking.
Oh my God.
An alternate username 12 talking about their mother becoming verbally abusive when drunk, souring their final years together. That leaves deep scars.
Yeah, Fidelli.
Then there was 130B's account of total family devastation, losing their home, marriage ending, neglect, violence, even their son needing a second kidney transplant while they were still drinking.
Mm.
It shows how addiction can just wreck everything in its path.
It's just immense, the damage.
It is. And it brings up that complex point. Some users, like Sludge and Fruit Loop Dingus, touched on how sometimes the disease concept, while valid, can unfortunately be used by some as an excuse to avoid accountability rather than a reason to actively seek help and make changes.
That's a tough one. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up. The big takeaway seems to be that the line between party animal and alcoholic isn't sharp. It's blurry. It's a spectrum.
Exactly.
And it's defined less by when or how much you drink and more by losing control, drinking to cope instead of for fun, and facing those negative consequences, whether they're loud or quiet. That shift from wanting it to needing it.
Perfectly summarized. And maybe that leaves us, and leaves you listening, with a final thought to consider.
Yeah.
How much does our society's normalization of drinking, especially heavy drinking in certain contexts, college celebrations, even just unwinding after work, how much does that inadvertently help mask the early signs of a problem? Does it allow people to drift further down that spectrum before they or anyone else really recognizes it? How might our collective idea of what's just partying versus what's actually a problem need to shift so we can maybe better support people who are starting to struggle?
That's a really good question. Something to definitely chew on. We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. Remember to subscribe, drop a comment, let us know your thoughts. Catch you on the next one.